Tune us in, turn us up, and tear the knob off, baby. This is History in the Highway. Hey, I'm your host, Stan Ellsworth, and today we're honoring veterans. We're going to talk about Veterans Day. Where does the holiday come from? What does it mean? It ain't just a day off of work. It's the day when we take time to say thank you to the men and women that risked everything and gave up everything, that our nation can be free. You know, Veterans Day started right after World War I. And, following World War I, there was a kind of a funny song that people would sing. It was very popular. And one of the verses went, when I was in France with the Army, I chanced to look into my kit. I thought there I'd find me a toothbrush, but the darn thing was loaded with shaving cream. Think of what those guys had. Think of what those guys had to endure. The world was changing all around them. And, for us, like with dental health and oral hygiene, things have changed. And the Quip electric toothbrush makes a difference. It's a revolutionary invention. This thing's been approved by over 20,000 dental professionals. I mean, it's magic, man. It takes the thinking right out of it. It's got a 30-second timer. You're going to get you 2 minutes in. You're going to brush your teeth. You're going to feel better. Bright, sparkly, pearly whites. It's a great thing. And it'll travel with you. It's compact. It'll fit right in your kit. And that is why I love Quip. Quip starts at $25, and if you get your toothbrush right now, your first set of replacement bristles are going to be sent to you free. So hurry up, man. Go to getquip.com/HTH. That's GETQUIP.com/HTH. Get you some Quip, baby, and get it now. Hey, man, so World War I. For 4 long years, the world had been at war. Started in August of 1914, ended November 11th, 1918. There'd been 65 million people under arms. 9 million of them had been killed in action. 21 million had been wounded in action. And 12 million civilians had been killed or wounded. The war had cost $186 billion in direct military cost, and $151 billion in indirect costs. The war was the most terrible that the world had ever seen. So why was this war fought? What did it mean? And how did Veterans Day come out of this terrible conflict? So here's a 411, guys. This is the why and the how. You see, at the time, the world seemed to be filled with pride, with hubris, and with a whole lot of alliances. Now, look at it. You've got these 4 enormous empires. You've got the British Empire. You've got the French Empire. You've got the Russian Empire. You've got the German Empire. And now the Germans are the new kids on the block. There wasn't a unified Germany until 1866. So they're, beating on the doors, trying to flex their muscle. They're elbowing their way into more and more land. And really what this was a land grab. These empires were jealous of each other, of their colonial holdings. They wanted them. Each one wanted what the other had. And the only way you could get it was to pick a fight and beat the other guy. And all of these empires were highly military. Each one creating a stronger army, a stronger navy, and dabbling in the Air Force. This is a brand new weapons system now, airplanes. But each nation, each empire competing with one another. And then there were those alliances. And they were all secretive. Who's aligned with who? Now, how it happened is June 28th, 1914, the Archduke and Duchess of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, one of the smaller empires, were riding in a car through the streets of Sarajevo. In the crowd was a Serbian terrorist, a member of an organization called the Black Hand. His name was Gavrilo Princip. Princip jumps out of the crowd, up on the running board of the car in which the Archduke and Duchess are riding, points his revolver, and empties the cylinder, all 6 shots. Kills the Archduke and Duchess. Gavrilo was put to death too, but his point was he was angry with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now the Austro-Hungarian Empire is angry at Serbia. So they say, we're coming to war. We're going to come and we're going to whip you and whip you good. Well, then the Russians say, now hang on, the Serbians are our ally. If you come against them, we're coming against you. Germany says to Russia, if you guys go against Austria, they're our ally. We're going to come and get you. And then France says, hold on a moment. If you go against Russia, we're going to come after you. They're our ally. And the British are saying, well, we don't want to miss out on this. We're kind of allies, sort of, kind of with the French. So if you're going to fight with them, you're going to fight with us. Bam, the world's at war. There's two sides, the allies, which basically are Russia, France, and England, and what we call the Central Powers, which are Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, another one of those old empires. And these guys are going to go at it, and they are going to bleed Europe white. Now, the United States is staying out of it. In 1914, most of the sentiment in the U.S. is, this isn't our fight. We don't want any part of this. Okay, and President Wilson even ran in 1916 on the platform, he kept us out of war. But things are going to go south. See, Germany had these U-boats, and they were trying to block Britain from receiving supplies from anyone, and the U-boats would torpedo the ships of neutral nations. It was called unrestricted submarine warfare. And on a number of these ships were American citizens. And American sentiment turned against the Germans when they kept torpedoing ships that had American citizens on the high seas. And then there was this thing called the Zimmermann Note. The German foreign minister, Arthur Zimmermann, sent a note to the Mexican government saying, hey, why don't you all pick a fight with the United States? Okay, we'll support you, and when the war is all over, we'll get you back that Mexican cession they took from you in 1848. California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and part of Colorado. Yeah, we'll get that back for you. Well, the British Foreign Service intercepted that telegram and translated it and gave a copy of it to President Wilson on April the 2nd, 1917. Woodrow Wilson stood before Congress and requested a declaration of war against the German Empire. The vote in Congress was 365 to 1. America was going to war. The reason Princip was so irritated is his group, the Black Hand, they wanted an independent Yugoslavia, a union of all Slavs, and they wanted Serbia to be the principal state of that new nation. Austria-Hungary wasn't giving them that kind of leash. They were keeping them real tight to the heel. And so Princip and his buddies, they figured the only way to get Austria-Hungary's attention and make them realize they were serious was this assassination. So for the Serbians, they saw this assassination as, their outcry of independence. For everybody else, it was just an opportunity to get to feuding, right? We're going to fight because that's the way we're going to take land from each other. So it literally was a powder keg, just waiting for some poor fool to light the match. Match was lit. The world's going to war. And just like the world went to war against each other, we need to go to war against tooth decay and halitosis. And you know what's really going to make you a good ally in this battle? The Quip electric toothbrush. The thing was designed to make brushing easier, affordable, even enjoyable. Look, man, I'm kind of a big guy, and when I go to war with that tooth problem, man, either the brush, my gums, or the teeth are taking a beating. But with Quip, it does everything with soft sonic vibration. The toothbrush does the work, takes me right out of the equation. And that's why I love Quip. It's efficient and effective. So hey, man, go to Quip, get you some. That's GetQuip.com/HTH. Go to getquip.com right now, and if you do, you'll get your first set of replacement brushes free. Quip starts at $25. So hey, maybe, get Quip, and get it now. That's a good thing that America came in on the side of the Allies right when they did. You see, Germany had figured out a way to disentangle themselves from the Russian battles, the Eastern Front as it was called. They sent Vladimir Lenin, who was living in exile in Germany, back into Russia to foment rebellion. The Bolshevik Revolution. And when the Bolsheviks came to power, Lenin quickly concluded a separate peace with the German Empire. Germany now had 2 million fresh soldiers that they could throw into the front in France, the Western Front. England and France had no answers. They'd been almost bled dry. So the American soldiers, coming when they came, was just in the nick of time. Now, right after Congress declared war, we had started the draft, and there would be 2 million American boys going over there, over to France. And they weren't coming back till it was over. We were going to defend democracy, defend our liberty. The ships sailed from New York. They sailed from Norfolk, Virginia. They landed at places like Brest on the Brittany Peninsula, Saint-Nazaire, Bordeaux, and they quickly assembled. The French and British wanted to just take the American units and piecemeal load them back into their units that had been so awfully depleted during the previous 3 years. But the commanding general, our commanding general, General John Pershing, he said no, we would fight as one force. We would fight as Americans. Now, you got to remember who John Pershing is. His nickname is Black Jack. When he first got out of the military academy at West Point, they put him in command of the Buffalo Soldiers. And he fell in love with these guys, took him everywhere he went. Even took him to Cuba with him when he went there during the Spanish-American War. Things would be a little bit different in France. But those guys were Pershing's guys. And John Pershing loved his guys. Now, another one of the guys that goes over actually started as one of Pershing's aides was Colonel George Smith Patton, Jr. You know, Patton, that screwball old horse cavalryman from World War II that ran nuts all over France and kicked the Germans' butts everywhere he could find them. Well, Patton came to France and became the commander of the Tank Corps. He led the tanks during the Battle of Saint-Mihiel and was badly wounded when he was shot by a machine gun. Another man that you might have heard of is Eddie Rickenbacker. Rickenbacker was Pershing's driver. Heck, Rickenbacker was a race car driver before the war. Told Pershing how much he wanted to fly. Pershing said, "Go get him, boy." And Rickenbacker would fly a French Spad 13 and become America's first flying ace. And then there was Sergeant Alvin York. Now, hold on to your hats, but Alvin York was a conscientious objector. See, he was a man with a troubled past. He'd been in so many bar fights in Tennessee and, spent so many nights in jail and trying to rid himself of the demon alcohol that he'd cut a deal with the Lord, that if the Lord would forget all his sins, he'd quit committing them. And then with that draft going on, Alvin got notified that his number was up and he was off with the draft. He was troubled. He felt like, but if I go over there and kill people and get violent again, the Lord might forget our deal. Took him 2 weeks of praying and pondering before he decided that, yeah, he had to go. And it's a good thing he did. During the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne, Sergeant Alvin York eliminated 3 German machine gun nests single-handedly and captured 128 Germans, all by himself. For his actions during the battle, Alvin York received the Medal of Honor from the United States of America and the French Croix de Guerre. These medals are the highest recognition of bravery under fire by both nations. The American soldiers and Marines would fight in several critical battles. Their names are legendary in our armed forces even today. Chantigny, Château-Thierry, Belleau Wood, Saint-Mihiel, the Meuse-Argonne offensive. These battles were all won because of American soldiers, because of American Marines. These were the battles that turned back the great German offensive. And during Saint-Mihiel and the Meuse-Argonne, it was American boys that pushed back the German forces and forced them to retreat from France, forced them to negotiate a peace. And on November 11th, at 11 a.m., the guns fell silent. The war had ended. Peace had returned to the world. All of the belligerent nations would then meet in Versailles to negotiate a treaty that was supposed to bring an end to war for all time. But all it really accomplished was setting the stage for the next World War. And most of the American boys would come home. But many of America's sons didn't come home. Many of America's daughters who had come over to nurse the sick and wounded didn't come home. They're buried in the fields of France. When we were filming American Ride, we had a chance to visit several of our American cemeteries. And when you step on those grounds, you realize how sacred those places are. And you see the love and the care and the respect with which these cemeteries are kept. And you realize they're maintained by the French. The French nation remembers, and they know what awful fate may have befallen them, but for the sacrifice of America's sons and daughters. During the war, Canadian Colonel John McCrae wrote a poem that he felt would touch the hearts of many back home. It's called In Flanders Fields, and it goes like this. In Flanders Field, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amidst the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders Field. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with we who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Field. Because of Colonel McCrae's poem, the poppy became the symbol of remembrance. Armistice Day, November 11th, 1918, became Remembrance Day, the day that everyone remembered the fallen of the Great War. Over time, the United States has fought many wars, and our day of remembrance has become Veterans Day, a day when we remember all who have served under arms, have borne the burden of combat, have worn the uniform and risked all that our nation can remain free. We'll be right back after these messages. You know, some years ago, I received an email that contained this editorial that first appeared in 1995. It was written by Anthony Barton Hinkle, who was a veteran of the Marine Corps, and it was published by the Richmond Times-Dispatch on November 11th. And I'm just going to read it in its entirety. Some veterans bear visible signs of their service: a missing limb, a jagged scar, a certain look in the eye. Others may carry the evidence inside of them: a pin holding a bone together, a piece of shrapnel in the leg, or perhaps another sort of inner steel, the soul's ally forged in the refinery of combat. Except in parades, however, the men and women who have kept America safe wear no badge or emblem. You can't tell a vet just by looking. He might be the cop on the beat who spent 6 months in Saudi Arabia, sweating 2 gallons a day, making sure the armored personnel carriers didn't run out of fuel. He might be the barroom loudmouth who's dumber than a box of rocks, but whose overgrown frat boy behavior is outweighed 100 times in the cosmic scales by 4 hours of exquisite bravery near the 38th parallel. She or he is the nurse who fought against futility and went to sleep sobbing every night for 2 solid years in Da Nang. He is the POW who went away one person and came back another, or didn't come back at all. He's the basic school drill instructor who's never seen combat, but has saved countless lives by turning slouchy, no-account rednecks and gang members into Marines and teaching them to watch each other's backs. He's the parade-riding legionnaire who pins on his ribbons and medals with a prosthetic hand. He's the 3 anonymous heroes in the Tomb of the Unknowns, whose presence at Arlington National Cemetery must forever preserve the memory of all the anonymous heroes whose valor dies unrecognized with them on the battlefield or in the ocean's sunless deep. He's the old guy bagging groceries at the supermarket, palsied now and aggravatingly slow, but who helped liberate a Nazi death camp and who wishes all day long that his wife were still alive to hold him when the nightmares come. He is an ordinary and yet an extraordinary human being, a person who has offered some of his life's most vital years in the service of his country and who sacrificed his ambitions so others would not have to sacrifice theirs. He is a soldier and a savior and a sword against the darkness and is nothing less than the finest, greatest testimony on behalf of the finest, greatest nation ever known. So remember, when you see someone who has served our country, just lean over and say thank you. It's all most people need. And in many cases, it'll mean more than any medals that they were awarded. 2 little words that mean a lot. Thank you. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. Freedom isn't free, and the cost is high, and someone else paid the price for yours. Use your freedom wisely. When you see someone who served, do say thank you. And listen. Listen to their stories if they'll tell them. These folks aren't going to be around forever, and it would be wonderful if the stories of their courage, their patriotism lived on after them. But most importantly, exercise the rights of an American citizen that these people fought and died to preserve. I'm Stan Ellsworth, and this has been History in the Highway. We'll see you on down the road.